Reconnect on its own.
Are we on Wi-Fi and it went out?
Well, I don't know.
Is that what happened? Oh, God. We're supposed to be on Verizon.
I think we are on Verizon.
Orientation is locked. Rotate device back. I don't know. Orienting. Okay. Hello. Welcome to a brand new presentation, African Archetypes in Fairy Tales. We're so glad that you're joining us for this event and realize that this is brand new material, even for those of you who have heard Dr. Finch before. So without further ado, I present to you again Dr. Charles Finch.
Greetings. As always, it's a pleasure to be here to explore these subjects with the audience that has gathered. I, I almost don't know kind of where to begin, but I do need to do some background, all right? And the way we do, okay, I'm sorry you're getting a little bit of chit chat because we're trying to get this going on my cell phone, as it turns out, all right? Ellen has already kind of introduced the subject of what we're going to talk about. And the way I want to start is to talk about, give some background, to talk about instincts and archetypes. Instincts, when they are materialized, become archetypes. And archetypes are, shall we say, a symbolic way of representing the truth. Archetypes are the constituents of what we call myth or mythology. As I say, mythology in that case, which is a story that derives from what we call archetypes and symbols. Let's not forget symbols. They are kind of the same thing. They are, they are the same thing. They are so myths and mythotypes are those stories that derive from symbols and archetypes, and they are fundamental, therefore, to us at a deep structural level. They're not just funny, they're not just silly stories, all right? Even, although we're going to go into fairy tales, but the point about talking about fairy tales is that they derive from these ancient myths and therefore these ancient archetypes that go back to as far back as human beings were beginning to create stories, to begin to put some, what do you want to say? To put some structure, as it were, some understanding about the world around them. All right? But it operates on more than one level, what we're calling the archetypes and symbols and myths. There's the obvious external level. And these are, again, are the stories, the symbols, the physical things that we use that are there to activate these myths, symbols, and archetypes. Now, the thing about ancient Egyptian, let's, for lack of a better term, we'll call it mythology, all right? With the understanding, mythology, again, is not merely fanciful stories. Mythology is, as I've already said, a symbolic way of representing the truth, and maybe it's the only truth we can ever know, if you get right down to it. Certainly the ancient Egyptians seem to think so. The ancient people of Africa, even now, archetypes and symbols are active and present and ubiquitous throughout Africa and throughout African religion, African spiritual traditions, etc. Now, the point that we want to make is that fairy tales come from these very same things that we're talking about. And these fairy tales, although they're European, come out of Africa. And we're going to talk about those archetypes, shall we say, those symbols that arise in North Africa, Northeast Africa, and transform themselves into the stories that become our fairy tales. So while fairy tales are pleasurable little pastimes that we learn as children, there's something deeper about them, and especially when we get into the realm of mythology. Now, how did this happen, you might say? Well, we've already kind of discussed this in other contexts, is that so much, if not so much, most of what comes into the cultural strata of Europe, and indeed much of the world, comes out of Northeast Africa, the Nile Valley, both Egypt and Ethiopia. And these are the thoughts and the symbols and the ways of thinking and the ways of being that are that are conveyed again through these stories out of the symbolic realm, out of the mythical realm, that in later times become the fairy tales. Okay, so that is the reason why we are going to examine this, because it's fundamental to who we are without even knowing it. All right, we're going to look at two, maybe even three of these common fairy tales that we see in the Disney movies. We see them in books. We see them on TV, Disney Channel, etc. I'm gonna start. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Sleeping Beauty. All right, we may even do a what do you call it? The rhyme, the nursery rhyme. Let's start with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. All right. You said, what does that have to do with Africa? Well, that's a kind of interesting thing. That's why you go back to the archetypes. All right. Because believe it or not, this is a late, what's the word? Realization and manifestation of the Great Mother and the seven primordial children out of ancient Egypt. All right. Seven primordial children are the seven dwarfs. And in ancient Egypt, they are the seven deities that are fundamental to their religious system. But at the top is the word, can I say, at the eighth level, because there are seven levels. At the eighth level is the Empyrean, and that's where you find the Great Mother. Okay? So, and that's Hathor Nut, Isis, for example. And so this is how the what do you want to call it? The symbols, the myths, the stories come out, and then eventually take root much later on, of course, in ancient Egypt. Now, what about Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs? There's actually two parts to Snow White. If you want to read the story, go back and watch the movie, the Disney movie, the Disney cartoon movie, full-length cartoon, or read the books, the fairy tale books. But there's two parts to this. There's Snow White and the evil stepmother. Both of them, they're two aspects of the same thing. You see, because this is the thing about these archetypes, especially when you get to the Great Mother, which is the Great Mother in the ancient African symbol. It's the source of everything, and has at least two major aspects.
Two faces.
Two faces. There is the face, the face of light and of beauty and of good things. Then there's the dark face, the face of the so-called witch. Both of them sort of operating together, and that means that they are two aspects of the same mother construct, if I can use that terminology. Why? Because this is the way the human world is, but it comes down from there. And so in Snow White, you have Snow White, and she's this beautiful young girl, and then there's a mother who is the evil stepmother, who is this dark, forbidding witch. All right, and they are, of course, in back and forth conflict. And then there are the seven dwarfs. Let's not leave them out. Can't leave them out, because it's what we call the seven primordial elementary beings. All right, and you find you find the very same thing in ancient Egypt, and they are, what's the word? They belong, as it were, in the great mother's realm. All right. This is why, we in the fairy tale, of course, things have gotten kind of torn apart in a sense. So on the one hand, there's Snow White, then there's the seven dwarfs, and then there's the evil stepmother. All right. Now, therefore, Snow White, believe it or not, is an aspect of the Great Mother. Now, this is where you come into the cosmic aspect, because she is the being, or the being of light and beauty. All right. And therefore, the sun, S-U-N. Whereas the evil stepmother is a personification of darkness. All right. And it's always this constant, what do you want to call it? This constant battle, this war between light and darkness, good and evil, etc. All right. So, the sun goddess in ancient Egypt was Hathor. All right. And interesting name, Hathor means mansion of Horus. Horus was her son, S-O-N, and he was also the son, S-U-N. He was also, and you got to understand now that we're going back into time, he was also her consort. Why do we make this point? Because when Snow White, I forget these aspects of the story, whether she is attacked by the evil stepmother, the personification of darkness, and she falls into a sleep. And how is she brought out of her sleep? She is the handsome prince, quote unquote, comes and finds her, kisses her, and awakens her. The handsome prince is also the sun who, S-U-N, who in his rising awakens her. Okay? So he is Horus. He is
Prince.
Horus, yeah, the prince. I'm sorry, the prince that comes and rescues Snow White. So he is a Horus figure. And the dark figure, going back to ancient Egypt, is, well, some say it is Set, although even Set is a little interesting because Set wasn't always evil. It's more likely what we call the Apap dragon in ancient Egypt. All right? And he was a dragon of darkness and destruction and evil and all of that. And in fact, there is a scene in the book of the Coming Forth by Day where the sun, S-U-N, is in its solar bark. And at the head, it's Anubis, who is the dog. Well, actually, he's a dog, coyote, wolf, fox, and he is about ready to strike down the Apep dragon of darkness as the sun comes into his own. This is our Horus does that also. So this is Horus who manifests himself as the prince. He is also, of course, the avenger of his father. And we've seen this before. And this is where Set takes on his evil aspect, because those of you who are familiar with Egyptian mythology know that Set is the killer of Osiris, who is the father of Horus. And Horus and Isis, who is his mother, have to flee and wait until Horus comes of age so he could he could go into battle against Set and defeat him. And that battle wages back and forth. This is also very much in fairy tales, You never know who's going to win this one. And Thoth or Jehudi, it looks like one is going to win over the other. Thoth or Jehudi, who is the god of mind, will, and intelligence, steps in and stops it and restores each to his proper place, because he says there can't be any imbalance. You can't have one overcoming the other and destroying the balance of the universe. But again, believe it or not, Snow White is the Great Mother. The seven dwarves are her children, her seven elemental children. And the prince that comes and brings her back to life is Horus. And the dark queen, so to speak, we want to use that terminology, is the Apep dragon from ancient Egypt. Okay? Now, let's go to, we can do something similar with Sleeping Beauty. Sleeping Beauty is also, what do you want to call it, runs afoul of the jealousy of the queen or her stepmother, I forget which.
No, the fairy,
The,
the wicked.
oh yeah, the wicked fairy, all right, all right. And she, before she is able to consummate her marriage, again with the prince, the wicked fairy gives her an apple or picks her finger, I forget
Well, you
which.
got your fairy tales.
Yeah,
She's on the spinning wheel.
spinning wheel,
Pricks
and
her
then she pricks her finger. Yeah, it's been a while since I read some of these fairy tales. Then she pricks her fingernail. That spinning wheel is interesting because I'm not sure how to weave it in here. That's Neith in ancient Egypt. Neith is the goddess of spinning, but Neith is not evil, so it's a little hard to figure out if how Neith is transferred to this story as a spinning wheel. She pricks her finger on the spinning wheel, falls into a deep sleep, does Sleeping Beauty, uh, and for 100 years. At least that's one version of the tale until what? A prince and gives her literally the kiss of life and brings her back to life. So, that's another Horus figure. Horus type. Okay? Now, in ancient Egypt, so she is, let's figure out, how would you, what would you call her? Remember, there's two of them that you can refer to, Hathor or Isis. Isis is his mother. Hathor is also a type of mother of Horus, but her name, head hair, means mansion of Horus, so she's a type of his mother as well. But she is also the personification of beauty, and she's also a sun goddess who is put to sleep, just like what happens with the sun when it goes down, and is brought back to life at the dawn when the newborn sun, or the sun, S-O-N, and S-U-N, rises. And this is her son, S-O-N, as well as being the sun, S-U-N. And it rises, kisses her as his consort, wife, and brings her back to life. This is how it goes in the fairy tale. All right. Now, in ancient Egypt, it was always Osiris was the sacrificial one. Okay, he was the brother of Isis' adversary and his evil brother. But interesting enough, and so Set is the one who kills Osiris. All right, actually invites him to a banquet, and then he and his co-conspirators jump on Osiris, so to speak, and throw him into a casket and close it. And then they put it out in the River Nile. Well, and Isis starts mourning him, but she finds him. But she doesn't hide him well enough, and Set finds him again. And in finding him, he decides this time to cut him up into 14 pieces. See, this is where the lunar archetype comes in, because the 14 pieces represent the waning moon, the moon in its, the waning moon, the pieces, literally the pieces of the moon, because Osiris is also a lunar deity. But who is the one who brings him back? Isis with her magic. Okay? And it's a post-resurrection, but she marries him not as a human being, but as a spiritual being, after he has been resurrected by her. Now, there's two versions of the story. One is that Isis is the one that resurrects Osiris, and the other is that Horus is the one who who resurrects Osiris. Okay? So, and that's his father. Now, it gets a little complicated because Set and Aset are also brother and sister. And there's reason to believe that they were a pair before Osiris and Isis were. Okay? So, in the ancient Egyptian stories, they have a way of, there's more than one line, there's more than one, what do you want to call it, one plot. And somehow they get woven together by Thoth, who is the personification of wisdom, justice, and balance. All right. Now, let's also go to at least one nursery rhyme. The one I'm going to go to, because it's the one I can remember real quickly, is, I hope maybe this might be old though. This is what I grew up with. I mean, but I didn't know whether they were still, that people still knew about them. Hi diddle diddle, the cat and the fiddle. The cow jumped over the moon. The little dog laughed to see such a sport, and the dish ran away with the spoon. Huh. That little nursery rhyme is full of ancient Egyptian imagery, because the cat is Bast, Basset, the cat goddess, who is, by the way, a form of Isis. Okay? And the cow jumping over the moon is Hathor, because Hathor is not only a cow, she is associated with the moon. She's a moon goddess. The little dog laughed to see such a sport. The little dog is Anubis. Okay? Because Anubis is dog, wolf, jackal in ancient Egypt, sort of interchangeably. So when you talk, so they bring these different archetypes into this nursery rhyme. Now, I don't know about the dish ran away with the spoon.
You mentioned that once.
Yeah, but I can't quite
You said
remember.
something about something going faster at one planet, or Earth going faster than.
Dish ran away with the spoon. I'd have to think about that, because I can't bring it up as to how that fits. But you can. The point is that you can, in just that nursery rhyme, we've dealt with 3 or 4 different ancient Egyptian archetypes, because that's the thing about it. They have come down to us in unrecognizable ways. You might say, not hidden so much, but what's the different word from hidden when you are camouflaged? Okay, without us knowing anything. And so the ancient, quote, mythology being the symbolic way of representing the truth, has come down to us in the form of fairy tales. All right? There's another one I was thinking about, but I couldn't.
Rockabye baby
Yeah, Rockabye Baby
in the treetop.
in the treetops,
When the wind blows,
the cradle will walk.
will rock.
Will rock, excuse me. When the bough breaks, the cradle will fall, and down will come baby, cradle and all. You explain that one, because I don't think I really understand the. Oh, what she's reminding me is that it's a birthing image, because babies, in fact, do drop out of the mother's womb. Okay. Yeah.
The tree is a mother.
Oh yeah, and the tree is a mother figure. Its fact is Hathor. Right? So yeah, that's another one, and there are others too. Those are 2 that I could think about. The ones that we just discussed are the 2 that I could think about most easily. But just pay attention to your fairy tales. You will find these ancient African archetypes in them. So what does that tell us? Those ancient African archetypes, mythologies, symbolic manifestations or references are years ago, because they're fundamental. They're fundamental to our, quote, instincts. And therefore, out of instincts come the archetypes. And our thinking and feeling, both conscious and unconscious, are determined, are controlled, or directed by the archetypes. Okay? The one who really did the most work on that and the one that I read a lot was, at least in the modern times, was Carl Jung, Archetypes of the Collective Unconscious, right? He understood that. And he understood that human beings' mental processes and psychic processes derive from ancient archetypes. Uh, and that's Carl Jung, Archetypes of the Collective Unconscious. If you ever, his books are still, they have kept his books in print. So I guess the main thing, if there's a message to take from all of this, is simply this. These ancient, what do you want to call them? These ancient symbolic manifestations, mythical manifestations, haven't disappeared. They come back to us in fairy tales, and we kind of dismiss fairy tales as being for children, when in fact they come from foundational archetypes. And because of what has happened in the world, they have been trivialized. They have been trivialized. And we are slowly but surely beginning to recover so much out of that ancient world that made us. And I'll just say this before we finish. Let's see. I was in Egypt, 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, visiting the excavation of Anthony Karak, I call him Karakamoon Anthony Browder, and Elena Pishikova on the West Bank. It was, oh boy. It was a Ethiopian king, Karakamoon. That's right, Karakamoon. It was, oh no, sorry, Ethiopian high priest during the 25th dynasty. And I was walking back to the bus, and halfway between the excavation site and the bus, I stopped. And for no reason at all, I just looked down at my feet. I said, "Oh, there is a whole treasure trove of, what can I say? Treasure trove of artifacts, statues, sculptures, maybe even a city right below my feet." I had no reason for thinking that. I couldn't prove it, short of going and start digging there myself for about a year. But I then came to the conviction that you can go anywhere in Egypt within 20 miles on each side of the Nile, maybe even 30, and it doesn't matter where you dig. You will find the cultural remnants and the cultural remnants and where am I forgetting?
Artifacts.
Yeah, artifacts from 6 to 10,000 years ago. Oh, I've been to Egypt 11 times. My friend Anthony Karak Browder has been there 52 times. Has led groups there and has an excavation going there. And and there's so much to see just going back and forth all the time, but we haven't even scratched the surface of what's there, literally.
But speaking of Egypt,
Oh yes.
coming up.
We were supposed to lead a tour to Egypt right now, right here in the month of July of 2020. Well, you know what's going on. We didn't cancel it, we did postpone it. So everything, everything goes well. The trip to Egypt will be rescheduled and redone, or it was rescheduled for July of 2021. 2021. We've already got 35 people who have signed up, but there's room for more. And I always say for Africans in America, going to Egypt or the Nile Valley is like Muslims going to Mecca. It's transformative.
And the organization running it? Consolidated?
Yeah, I'm sorry. The the tour company is Consolidated Tours. They have organized all of my 10 or 11 tours in the past. They organize Karak Browder's, Tony Browder's tours. Yes, so Asa Hilliard's tours, all of his too, when he was with us. And yeah, so it's consolidated tours. Anyway, well, thank you for joining us. I'm sorry for the technical problems, but thank you for being here. And we will look forward to seeing you or being with you the next time.
Thank you so much. And don't forget that we bring you these videos at no charge, but we will accept just any small monetary tip. This is not a tax deductible thing. This is just a tip to continue Dr. Finch's work. If you can make such a contribution by going to on PayPal, paypal.me/Charles S. Finch, or you can do it through Cash App at $SeedStar1, the number one, $SeedStar1. We thank you for, because any little contribution that you would be behooved to make is very much welcome. You can see us with our snowy hair, so you know that it is. Thank you so much for joining us on this really very unusual but very important presentation.